2025 season is going to start for Tua and the Miami Dolphins as they fly up to Indianapolis to take on their new starting quarterback, Daniel Jones, and the Colts. My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan. Today, we're going to break down the Dolphins Colts Week 1 matchup. Before we get into that, be sure to leave a comment. Let us know who you think will win this game and why. And also hit that subscribe button to get notified when new videos come out. So, Ryan, as I said here, very interesting time, I think, for both of these organizations. It just feels like for both of them that if things don't go well this year, there's just going to be some more major changes overall. Tua's been now, I mean, they signed him to a fat contract, but what's going to happen with Mike McDaniel overall? It's the Dolphins, as we kind of talked about during the whole life cycle of the Tracy take here. It seems like they're kind of the one trick pony. I mean, like they are really good at running the ball, but it's when it's they have these big explosive games. So when they get matched up against better teams, though, like their speed
Yeah.
gets counteracted just by good overall quality play. While on the flip side, though, too, the Colts, they have the talent. I mean, they've got a good offensive line. They've one of the better running backs in the league. They've drafted solid receivers in the receiving room. They had a high pick that they were banking on in Anthony Richardson Sr., who we'll get to here in a second. Defensively, overall, I think they've made some of the right moves, invested a lot in the secondary. This free agency, getting Travarius Ward, also getting Cam Bynum as well too. So, and front seven definitely isn't horrible at all. I mean, some weaknesses, like maybe get a little bit better in the running game, but in general, though, not bad. And so like this Colts team on paper should be a playoff contender. I think should be vying for the division every single year. But I want to throw it over to you here, though. When you look at the Dolphins, you look at the Colts. What are some of the things that stick out to you, and what are some of the things that both teams need to focus on to win the game this week?
I agree with the Colts on paper statement. I will say, I think you look at the offensive line, there are some questions there.
Especially
And
now. That's fair.
defensively, you look at that secondary, and man, do I have some concerns uh, with how they're gonna play. Especially that safety position. I know they invested in Cam Bynum. They did get Travarius Ward as well. So like they have some pieces there, but uh, historically that defense has not been very good for the Colts. And yeah, I looking at the Dolphins, I think a very similar thing can be said here as well, where you look at that wide receiver room and even that running back room, a lot of talent. And Tua is by far the best quarterback in this game. But you look at that offensive line. I know they got Jonas Savanayi in the draft. They got Patrick Paul last year, so they're hoping that he can potentially take a step forward this year. But then you go and you look at that defense, and they invested in Kenneth Grant in the middle. Jordan Phillips has been uh, in and out of the lineup throughout his career with injuries, and now he's coming off a torn Achilles, I believe. And so I also know Chop Robinson had a good rookie season last year. Was more surprised with how well he played because I wasn't super high on him coming out of the draft. But again, you look, they move on from Jalen Ramsey. That secondary is not very good as well. And so like I have a lot of questions about both of these teams coming in. And then you mentioned the Dolphins being that one trick pony. They have usually started out seasons well, and then really faded towards the end of the year. Last year they didn't really do either. They kind of started out meh and finished meh. Uh,
hmm
and I
The
think,
the injury to Tua early on in the year,
yeah,
it definitely had a big part in that.
and I agree, but they still weren't as dominant in the first. Well, I guess he only played like 2.5 games, and then he got the concussion. But they weren't as dominant in that
Yeah.
period, and then they really struggled from there. So, um, for me, looking at how these teams stack up, I will say where the Colts have done a really good job investing in building a very deep part of their roster is that defensive line. And with a lot of questions on this Dolphins offensive line, I think that's going to be a very big turning point of this game. If the Dolphins offensive line can stifle DeForest Buckner, Laiatu Latu, they just invested in JT Tuimoloau as well. They have some good rotational defensive tackles to sub in and out and keep that defensive line fresh. I think that could be a really strong advantage here for the Colts. And on the flip side of that, I think if that if that Colts defensive line really struggles, this secondary could get exposed pretty bad. You have Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Malik Washington looks really good. Nick Westbrook-Akina as your wide receiver 4 is a good group, and then they have Taj Washington there as well as that 5th wide receiver. Devon Achane, Ollie Gordon, that's a very good change of pace. They still have Jalen Wright, who had a good rookie season last year. So I think this Dolphins skill position group, if you were playing 7-on-7, would be by far the best in the league. It
Mhm.
really just depends on how that offensive line can hold up to me in this matchup.
Yeah, I think it's a fair question too, and you kind of brought it up a little bit. There's definitely parts of the Colts offensive line that are still. I mean, Quentin Nelson's still one of the best guards in the
Yeah,
league. Still going to have Bernard Raymond, Braden Smith coming back. But how's Tanner Bortolini going to play? How's Matt Goncalves going to play? Now, to be fair, some of those guys did get some playing time because Will Freeze got hurt early on in
yeah,
the season, so those guys were able to come in and step up. So it's going to be a younger offensive line for sure, but I think it's one that's going to be consistent. To me, I think in the trenches overall, I think the Colts have it. I think skill position players, I do believe the um, Dolphins have a slight edge, but not big enough, I think, to
yeah,
be a game changer in this. The big X factor for me is going to be the quarterback position. I think we know what Tua is going to get. We know what Tua is going to bring. That's the type of offense that he brings. That play action, hit things kind of in motion right there. Doesn't really go through too many reads like through progression. Like just sits there and lets the play out. There's always a lot of set plays and play action plays. How is Daniel Jones going to do? That's the X factor to me here. Because
yeah,
ironically, I think the best thing for this offense is to have Daniel Jones play. It's not like it's a big thing, but what we did see a couple years ago when Gardner Minshew was the guy, when Anthony Richardson went down for the season, Gardner Minshew was the stereotypical point guard quarterback, but was able to manage, was able to run, was able to go through his progressions and be able to feed guys the ball the way that it was. And then Anthony Richardson, yes, can he throw the ball 80 yards? Does he have those explosive plays? But he also has a bunch of boneheaded plays too, and he just makes those mental errors, like the last one that we saw of him in the preseason, where he wasn't able to read the progression snaps, read the blitz and hit the check down guy, which ended up making him dislocate his pinky. Now, is Daniel Jones perfect? No, but I think Shane Steichen can work with him and be like, okay, this is going to be the game plan. This is what we're going to do. Not going to make you try and do anything too crazy. And Daniel Jones has been around the block. And you think about it too, outside of Malik Neighbors, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm missing anybody overall from like past Giants receivers during Daniel Jones' career, but this is by far the best offensive line he's had. This is going to be the best overall running game he's had, mainly just because the offensive line was so bad. I know he had Saquon Barkley, but let's be honest, Saquon Barkley was severely limited by how bad the Giants' offensive line was. This is going to be the
yeah,
best receiving room that he has overall. Michael Pittman Jr., Alec Pierce, Josh Downs, going to have A.D. Mitchell. Going to have Tyler Warren coming in too now as tight end as well. Like Daniel Jones, this is probably the best scenario for Daniel Jones. Is can he rise to the occasion and set things up? Even when the Giants went to the playoffs a couple years ago, I still think this offensive roster is better than what he was able to do than with that Giants team last year. It was kind of a shock what he was able to do and what that Giants team was able to do in Brian Dable's first year as head coach for the Giants. So it's just Daniel Jones had the confidence. Does he have the swagger back? That was the reason why he was a top 10 pick coming out of Duke. That's going to be the big question here. I think that's going to be the big X factor, and I, I think I think week one, it's going to be interesting to see how he ends up doing. I do think this home crowd, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Indianapolis gets behind their sports teams, and with the Pacers coming so close to the win of the NBA Finals, I think they're going to want to see some success in their sports teams. I am going to go with the home team here. I'm going to go with the Colts. I think Daniel Jones is going to have a measly, probably 220-yard passing game, but I think it's going to be a much more well-rounded game. And I think Miami, I think some of their struggles are going to continue overall, just with some of the change. I think when it comes to their offensive line, and then also lot of the pieces on their defense as well too. So I'm going to go with the Colts here, but I think it's going to be a close game, and I think the Colts are going to pull it out in the end.
I'm really tempted to take Miami here. I just think you look week 1, they usually have one of their better offensive performances of the season. But I am gonna agree with you actually on the Colts. I do think you look Daniel Jones might come out and be like you said, point guard facilitator that this team needs. This defensive line, I feel like, is going to be fairly dominant over this Dolphins offensive line. And actually, I said it in the beginning. I'm a little bit higher on the Colts secondary. I forgot that they added Travarius Ward and Cam Bynum
Mhm.
as well, so I'm a little bit higher there as well. Kenny Moore is a very good slot corner as well.
Yeah.
Uh, so I still am a little worried that this might just turn into a track meet. With this Dolphins offense and Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, um, I think will win it out for the Dolphins. But you're not playing 7-on-7; you're playing 11-on-11, and it'll be interesting to kind of see what how this game turns out. But I'm also going to take the Colts here
Okay.
in this Week 1 matchup. So
I like it.
let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on who you think is going to come out ahead. Will it be the Miami Dolphins? Will it be the Indianapolis Colts? Other than that, we'll see you guys next time.